I just know you're going to love the guests that we have on in this episode, so don't go away. Welcome to the interview. I'm Dr. Rick Wadge, and we have some special guests. You've probably seen them on Israel TV Network. They are incredible. They're the dynamic duo in Israel, and that is Martin and Natalie Blackham. Hey guys, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Rick. And how are you?
We are doing good in the States. You have been running a TV show for the longest time, Israel First, and it's incredible. Where would you tell people to go if they want to go directly to the website to see more of your programming?
Yeah, they can go to www.israelfirst.org and they can, it's all on the website. There's the links to everything. We have changed recently from YouTube to Rumble, but other than that, everything is pretty much there on the site.
A good choice. We have made the same choices as well. We found that we would run on YouTube within a day. They would find some reason to ban us. And so we just got tired of messing with it. So Rumble is a great place.
Yeah, well, it's working very well at the moment. It's a bit quieter than YouTube, but we've just started, so
Yes.
it's good. They let us have the freedom to do what we need to speak about without having to worry about the fact that they're going to take you down or ban it.
Yes.
After you put in a lot of time of production, suddenly you find that your video is no good. So it's
Yes.
very important. Very important, yeah.
No, I agree. The only thing that concerns me a little bit, and I'm really hoping and praying this isn't the case, but because they're based out of Canada, I'm a little concerned about some of the lockdowns and tightness comparative to the United States from Canada. So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I mean, we're the same. We don't know. I mean, in Israel, we have been starting to use Rumble, but we, like yourself, we don't know how it's going to play out. But at the moment, it's working okay. But it's one of the issues we've had, Rick. I think I've mentioned it to you that we had an issue with Facebook. We had a Facebook page for Israel First. In fact, that's one of the first signs we realized that something wasn't right with what's happening. We had a Facebook page. I don't know how many thousand people were on it, but 13 maybe or more. But we had people coming onto it from the mainstream media, so I knew that people were looking at it. And that just got blocked suddenly. No way we could unblock it. It was gone. And then recently we had the same with YouTube, who've blocked the video as well. So now we're having to use other forms of media to get the message out. And it's okay if you want, as long as you don't say certain words, Rick, you're okay. But once you start talking about the injectable or anything like that, they don't want to know.
We are, we're in agreement 100%. And we're at the point now at Israel TV Network where we are not going to play into their hands any longer. If they want to shut down Facebook, shut it down. We'll find another outlet for it. This is about free speech. And, it's very interesting because any of the pandemics and epidemics we've had in the past, when they do testing, they're always looking for the results, and it's free speech about this is what's happened to me, this is how I feel, but not with this one. And that should alarm everyone that why would there be no free speech about a vaccine, which it's really not, is in testing form. Wouldn't you want all the information, all the side effects, everything? I mean, all of our TV shows in the United States always have the last probably 30 seconds of all the things this could possibly do to you, but not with this, not with the COVID-19 vaccines. And that's very alarming,
Right.
and we're just not going to play into it any longer.
Right, and they've put out a video. It's called Testimonies, because anyone
from Israel.
From Israel. It's
Good.
a video from Israel. filmed by a lady who was very concerned about what was happening, wasn't getting out to the media. She's done a video. It's called Testimonies on YouTube, and basically it goes through people who've been brave enough, because a lot of people have been told not to say anything, who've had an adverse reaction to the Pfizer vaccine, and they've been brave enough to go forward. Some people have lost loved ones. Some people have had bad reactions. But it's not in the mainstream media, Rick. Nobody is hearing this out of Israel. Everybody thinks everything's fine, and it's not. You know, this is a very important video which is telling the truth about what's happening here.
Well, I really appreciate that you both are just being upfront, factual, and I so appreciate everything that you're doing. And before I forget, Hag Sameach, because as we film this, of course, it's the first day of Hanukkah. So.
Right. And Hanukkah is a time of the lights. You know, it's the season of lights where we put the candles in the kitchen and also in the window. You naturally put the candles in the window because it's you let the light shine out to others. But I haven't seen so much of that this year. We have a Chabad organization in the village, and they've put up a Hanukkah at the entrance to the community when you come in, that they light every evening.
Sure.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem the same as it was before. It has changed. You know, Israel has changed. I guess the world has changed, and we're all trying to catch up really with what's happening.
You know, I've been trying not to be a conspiracy theorist, but this is a worldwide conspiracy. I mean, it seems like it. Right. That there's a real sense among all the countries of removing people's freedom of speech and their rights to assemble and, you know, the things that we hold dear in the United States. And so being in Texas, thank God, being in Texas, we are just not going to put up with it. You know, at the very beginning, everybody was lost. Okay, let's all play along and, you know, watch this thing go away. But more and more you can see it's a political move, especially here. We see it as a political move. And we're just not going to put up with it any longer.
There is a lot of people, there is a lot of freedom manifestation and march, and nothing on the television, nothing. And there is a lot of people who are not happy and who are rebelling the right way because they want to keep their freedom.
And in the parliament as well, we've got people who are speaking in meetings in the parliament. It's very difficult for them because they don't want them there in the first place. In fact, anybody who says anything against this narrative is shut down. And the miracle is that there's still allowing, some are still getting into the parliament to speak. But it's not being covered. I mean, the mainstream media is gone in Israel. And I guess that applies in where people are watching today across the States, that the mainstream media is not reporting what's going on. But it is a shock. We were very shocked. And
we didn't see it happening,
right,
coming. And many people that we listen to, they say, you know, this was happening already for a while, but we didn't see it. And it's like, yes, you're right. Because now we can see sign was already there, but we didn't. We just didn't.
No. And the lockdowns and restrictions meant that you couldn't really confer with other people other than by Zoom or other means. You didn't really know what was going on. We were restricted from movement. Roads were closed in Israel. And this was in 2020. And so there wasn't so much, we weren't able to see really what was going on. As journalists, you could still travel in the country, but it was restricted, and entry to certain buildings was restricted. And so it all seemed to happen so quick, and they brought the vaccine, suddenly appeared, no choice, no anything, and it was forced. It was almost like it was forced upon us. And then suddenly, Rick, you couldn't go to work. a lot of the factories here, a lot of the businesses here, the telecommunications, the computer companies, Mobileye, were saying if unless you've had it, you can't come into work. Then the schools, hospitals were sacking staff, and then they were saying there weren't enough hospital staff, and they just sacked them, you know, because they are not taking the thing, and then they're saying, no, we haven't got enough staff. There's a crisis.
Never seen anything like this before. Go ahead, Natalie. Sorry.
Some don't want to work because they don't want the job, and so they are going out. And but one thing which is good here, because there've been ways when Plan A doesn't work, you have to have Plan B or C or D. And so people, like some nurses and some doctors, are doing things on the side and kind of organize something. Now it's not really still organized, but we can see some Arab people, which is very interesting because like Israel is a mishmash of different
Cultures.
Yeah, cultures and like even some Jewish people, you have the one who are ultra Orthodox, and you have the others, and you know, like a lot of difference. But we can see some Haredi or like Orthodox Jews who are starting to make their own because they've been used to that. Some have never believed the government. So you know, there is a lot of things. Some never believe the government, so they say, you can see, we've told you. And so they have already things who are organized. So for example, if people are sick, they will need oxygen. They will bring oxygen to the people. They will go to visit them, so they don't need to go to the hospital because they know that it's dangerous to go to the hospital now. So they have already these things organized. But then you see also some Arab, the same, who don't really want to believe the government, so they already have also their little thing. And you can see some Arab doctors who are helping ultra-Orthodox people. Because, so it's like, you know, it's just, there is no boxes anymore in Israel. It's like the one who are vax and the one who are anti-vax who are trying to survive is getting more and more like that.
But the amazing thing is that this is all happening with the backdrop of us being in the Holy Land. This is God's land, and this is the place, Jerusalem, the Jerusalem above, Jerusalem below. This is the place where the Holy Spirit came. This is the place where the disciples were. This is the place of the Maccabees. So we have all this backdrop, and then we've got all this chaos being forced upon us. And yet, some people have been saying it's quite interesting that in the middle, we're kind of going in between the raindrops a bit. It's amazing that, you know, the Lord is kind of directing us through the middle. But the restrictions are tight, and how long you can keep going on like that, I don't know it.
And you know, I would have thought ignorantly or naively, I would have thought that Israel would have been the last people group to accept, the last culture to accept this test, because it's a test. And, you know, with their history of having waited to the last minute and then said, oh my goodness, we didn't think our neighbors would do this. You know, because my history is working with and befriending Holocaust survivors. When I was a pastor for over 20 years, I worked with Holocaust survivors. They were like fathers to me. And for years, side by side, every single day, calling on the phone, helping them get medication, listening to their nightmares that they would have. And so my heart bleeds Israeli blue. I just can't believe that they fell for this, that a lot of the Israelis have fallen for this.
You know, this is interesting what you are saying, because we have also a friend who is looking after survivors, and they know, and they are sensitive about a lot of things. Most of them, many did not want the vaccine, but they push it on them. And after, there are all these people And so they say, okay, because they want to see their friends. They don't want to be
Yeah,
isolated.
they were told if they don't take it,
Of
they can't
course.
see their friends.
Threats
And a
and
lot of them,
fear.
a lot of them are, yeah, a lot of
It's
them are single
just,
people, so they live for that, to meet their friends
Of
for
course.
coffee.
These are their last
well,
years. You know, they've already been through hell and back. And
I
so they
know.
want to
And you
have
know,
peace.
yeah, and you know something, I mean, we were, like you, we were naive. We were naive for many things. And when I saw like really the vaccine push onto these survivors, and we went for what
Holocaust
was
Memorial
the
Day.
Holocaust
Hmm.
Memorial, and were invited to be with them, and they were with the police, and there was this very special ceremony. And there, when I came back home, I'm like, you know what? The government should be giving every shekels to these people, and they are not. They are
Yeah.
playing. And suddenly I'm like, they are playing. No, this is not right. And it's one more thing that we saw. And is that, and now you want my trust. How can I
Right.
can't trust you
Right.
anymore. You know, I can't trust you anymore if you do things like that. And we saw thing, I think with Martin, I don't know if you remember, but again, all the nations were in Israel, in Jerusalem, in Yad Vashem. This was in 2020,
January.
on the
Oh,
28th of January,
Mm-hmm.
2020,
just as
just
this was coming out.
before the corona.
Yeah.
And they were all there,
Right.
and there were a lot of Freemasons
At Yad Vashem. I didn't know that.
in Yad Vashem.
Hmm.
And you know, we felt after when we started to put the dots all together, we were like, oh my goodness. And we have this friend because we started to be more with like the one who is looking after the survivors. We knew each other. We've done an interview with her, but we didn't really keep contact with her. And she saw one of our program, and she saw that we were standing for what we say now, and she reconnected with us. And so we start now to see each other, and we spend hours to try to put the dots together. And we were speaking about this evening, the 28th of January 2020. And she said, I was in America at the time, and I saw that. And she said, I was so angry inside of me, but I didn't understand why. And now I know why. And so, when we're speaking together, it's like it's helping each other to put the
Of
dots
course.
together, because it's like for a good year, we were like, what's happening? Okay, I don't have answer to all the questions that I have. We need to find out. And
Yeah.
we were thinking so hard to try to put the dots together.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting with Israel because Israel has depended on its government for safety for
Right.
many years. So they depend on them for the security, against terrorism, against Hamas missiles. So we have every house has a safe room, a bunker you go to. So we depend on the government.
Who said now you can go back. So a lot of people really trust the government.
And as well as that, it was that, and as well as that, they said you can't go to work, you can't go to restaurants. So suddenly everything was closed. And people's livelihoods, people depend. People depend on their salary. They have a house, a mortgage, and
we believe them. We believe them at the beginning.
Yes.
We believe them because we believe and
course.
after it's like something is very wrong.
Yeah, it's taken all of us a little bit of time to watch the errors in their thinking, to watch them contradict themselves over and over and over. So, you can't, in America, of course, our Bill of Rights is based upon the inability to completely trust the government. That's why we have the rights to bear arms. And that's so that it's not for foreign nations coming in. Our rights to bear arms is against our own government. So that if they ever get too full of themselves and stop listening to us, that we can take back over again the government and put in people that will listen. And so there's a whole lot of folks that, I mean, if you look at gun sales in America, especially in Texas, they've gone through the roof because people are thinking, look, this administration we currently have is somehow sold out to a global initiative, and they are not listening to us any longer. Hey, you know, one of the things I want to do a couple times in this show is I'm guessing you guys could probably use some good sponsors.
Right.
And so let's talk about how people might be able to help you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we do the program, the Israel First television program, which people can sponsor. You know, they're very welcome. We'll give them an introduction at the end, at the beginning and the end of the program, and dedicate it to them. We've also done it for people, Rick, for people to remember people. You know, if they've lost a loved one, and it's very special, you know, to invest into Israel because, you know, even in the middle of everything, this is still God's land, and still, you know, it's still, he still looks down on this land, and he's still watching everything. And so to invest into Israel, a lot of people said, we can't come to Israel. We want to come to Israel, but we're certainly not going to go through all this procedure. And one of the ways you can still come to Israel is to be able to give a gift and to be able to sow into Israel. And, you know, it's biblical, you know, to bring a gift to the temple, and we can see out of the window, we can see Jerusalem, and so it's we can be a blessing for people as well. Yeah, so those are the main things. But
and where would they go? What would the website be?
So people can go to the donate page on the website, which is www.israelfirst.org. They can either contact us direct, or there is some friends of ours called Zion's Bridge are also helping us in the States, and they can give you a tax, a U.S. tax return, so for your donation, and that really helps. But it really does make a big difference because it enables us to do the work and takes our minds off that rather than having to think about that. You can think about other things, and so that would really help as well. Yeah.
Good. Now, one of the things that I think you wanted to talk about is the days of Noah, and maybe how that's reflected in what's going on, or paralleled in what's going on today. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I didn't really think that this would be relevant now, but it's become huge. And, you know, in Matthew 24, 37, 39, it says, "But as in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." So I realized that we need to look at the days of Noah. And I started doing some research and looking at the book of Enoch.
Yes.
And I didn't know about the book of Enoch at all. And
and Christians may not realize, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Christians may not realize the importance of the book of Enoch within ancient Judaism, and how important it is for us to understand those themes that are reflected then in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament.
Right, and suddenly when I was reading the book of Enoch, I suddenly started to see, it talks about in the Bible, it talks about the Nephilim, the giants, and I didn't really know anything about this, but it was interesting. You know, Bible professor Alan Cooper suggested that it was interspecies or intermingling of human women and divine creatures. That was the main thing that angered God. And I didn't know anything about this area. So
Genesis 6.
Right, and it said that he hid Noah and he brought the animals to him who were pure, and I always thought that meant they were kosher, which is one of the meanings, but it also means that they're pure DNA.
Yeah.
That what had happened at the time of Noah was that DNA had been corrupted in human beings and in animals. And
and when it's interesting because in Hebrew, when you look at what is written for the animals, is written Ish and Isha. Is written they are married. which means that they were male and female.
Mm-hmm.
That it was the normal way of having a relationship, even for the animals, because this inbreeding and all the things that they were doing genetically, it was the human, but it was the animals, and it was the vegetation. And so God, okay, say this is not the same.
But I think we better back up, because otherwise, people will jump in and won't really understand how we got to DNA with Noah. But it says in the book of Enoch about the fall of the angels, the watchers, who fell, and interesting enough, they fell on Mount Hermon. And Mount Hermon it means the oath, and they made an oath that they would marry with human females, and that they covered each other. That's why they called it the oath. So if they were in trouble, they would all be in trouble. So they made this pact on the Mount of Oaths, Mount Hermon, and they called them the Watchers fell to earth, and they intermingled with humans, and that's where we get the giants from, the Nephilim, which of course people will know from David and Goliath, from the giants who were in the Holy Land when the spies out. One of the interesting things, Rick, is we see, because we've got a van near us in our street from the tourist agency of Israel, and one of their signs is this huge bunch of fruit, like monstrous sized fruit. And what was that? That was because they've been altering the DNA of vegetables.
We start to understand so many things now that is written in Genesis. And it's like suddenly, oh my goodness, this is all linked together.
So they were taught that the people were taught, how to alter the DNA, and that blew my mind. I thought, how could they know at that time? I thought they were quite primitive, but they were able, because the angels were able to teach them, and they taught them how to change the DNA, and that's why we got all the genetically modified creatures, and we got man was genetically modified. And then I saw with this vaccine, the mRNA starts to interfere with the DNA. It's a messenger, and they're starting to interfere with us with the vaccines, with this transhumanism. And suddenly I was starting to put the dots together, and I was like, what are they doing to our generation? And Jesus said it's like, this has got to be the last generation, because it cannot go on like this.